Hi guys, welcome to Vlogmas Day 19, and it's all about story time and talking about traditions and remembering Christmas as a little child. Well, I grew up in Essequibo, Good Hope, on the Essequibo coast to be precise, and I lived for I lived 10 years of my life in Essequibo, and the Christmases in Essequibo are the ones that will stay with me the most from my childhood because they were so family oriented. Christmas morning was always special for me as a child. We weren't a rich family, but we always, had enough. I'm sure many people in Good Hope probably thought that we had it all, but it was just the way that our family carried themselves. My grandmother, how she would teach us to behave, and the mannerisms that we adopted, and the life that we lived, the values and morals that were instilled in us. Christmas morning in the early part of my childhood was surrounded by a lot of family members. Some of them are gone now, especially the main people, my grandmother and grandfather, who always made Christmas feel so special. My uncle used to live with us. My aunt is still there. My cousins grew up with us, two of them. One, she got married and then she left the country. And a few of our cousins would come from time to time. So the house was always packed. On Christmas morning, you would get the things that you weren't accustomed to getting. Like, for instance, every day you would drink milk tea, and then on Christmas and Boxing Day, Old Year's and New Year's, you would get Milo. So that was always a treat, and we can't forget the pepper pot. And then I would start eating the black cake from the night my grandmother finished it, because there was something about her black cake, and I don't feel the way I do about anybody else's cake, like the way I felt about my grandmother's cake. So I still haven't had cake like she used to make it, and for a piece of time when she died, I stopped eating black cake. I hated Christmas for many reasons, because that was her season. But now that I have baby Jem, I'm starting, to adapt the feeling again. But Christmas was sensational in Esquibble for me. We would wake up Christmas morning to a very beautiful, colorful house. You know those houses back in the day when you would blow up balloons, and we would have up our Christmas tree, and then we would get up, you would hear Christmas music. Well, my grandmother would always want us to play gospel before, and then we would get into Christmas music, and then later on in the day, we could play whatever we wanted. But the first thing we would always do, they would allow us to sit on the ground. Everybody would be sitting on the chairs, and they would watch the little children open their Christmas gifts. For me, I thought we were rich people, right? Even though now looking back, I could see that we were just a normal family. But the way that they made things happen, I don't know how they would have done it, but we always had Christmas gifts. There was a truck that used to pass Christmas Eve with a lot of toys, those fine food dolls. Many of you might not know it, but in Guyana we get a lot of fine food dolls. You hardly see them now, but they're still around. And my grandmother would make sure that every Christmas Eve we got whatever fine food doll we wanted from that truck, and that happened up until I left for Bishops, to come to Bishops in town. And even when because I would always go back, I had to spend Christmas, even when I was in high school living with my mom and then with my aunt, and even when I got married, and I would always have to go back. If not Christmas, when I got married, I would go on Boxing Day because Essequibo was home. Christmas morning, after opening your gifts, you sat down, you ate your pepper pot and bread with everybody. And we have this tradition in our family. Well, now everybody has grown up and branched off, but I still try to maintain it. We would call our aunts and our uncles. The phone would just be busy all morning. If not in the morning, you do it throughout the day. We call all our family members everywhere, and they would have to speak with my grandmother, my grandfather. We would speak to all our aunts, all our uncles. And it was just something, that you had to ensure that you call your relatives, everybody. And then You get a nice meal at Christmas lunch. My aunt would cook up a storm because when my aunt was away at work in charity, we would stay with my grandparents. If she was working in charity, she would come home like Christmas Eve. She would also come home the weekends before and, get the house ready and so on. But my aunt was there to do the Christmas cooking, so we had a lovely time. And then the other special thing about Christmas in the country is that your neighbors, as soon as everybody know you had your Christmas breakfast and you change over into your Christmas clothes and you're at home, then your neighbors would start coming, let's say from like 1 o'clock and so. My grandmother always ensured that she had ginger beer, black cake, sponge cake, and she had those nice little saucers and the little forks. So whenever anybody came over, they had a piece of sponge cake, a piece of black cake, and a glass of ginger beer. And that was what Christmas was for us. And then in the afternoons, sometimes you would have so many people in the house, that you would have to go in the veranda, right? Because my grandparents, they were well loved in the village, so we always had guests, and that happened up until they died. People don't come over as much now because remember, everybody that we would have grown up seeing, they might have passed on or probably moved to another area in Guyana. The other thing is that in the afternoons on Christmas afternoon, we would have something we call bad cow or masquerade, and the cow would come from either Aurora or it would come a little more from like Dry Shore. So when you would hear that beating of the bad cow drum coming all the way, and we would start getting so scared, right? Because the cow would come, and then back in when I was like my 5 years below and 6 years and 7 years and so on, when the drains were good and the trenches were good, the cow would push people into the trench, and that would cause the little children to be so scared. I mean, they did it out of fun, and it was with your fellow village people, so nobody was mad or anything. You know that is what the cow was supposed to do. So they would push them into the trench, because back then when they used to clean the trenches properly, the water used to come very high. People would dress up. Masquerade back in the day in Good Hope was something to dress up about. So people would dress up, and the crowds used to be large. It's not the same now, because some of the people who would have maintained the masquerading would have passed on. Other people moved away. Some people are living in another country, and Good Hope is not like how it used to be before. But you would get so one time when the masquerade was coming down the road, right, we used to always run when it reached our bridge, because normally what the cows do, they come into your yard and they run you all over, they run you in your house, right? It's just something that you grew up seeing. And one time we had a shop more closer to our bridge, and me, my grandmother, and my sisters were sitting outside, and we hear the cow coming, right? I never used to go. My sisters would follow the cow when it passed our house to Supana, but I have never followed the masquerade. I always like to be at home. Even now when I go to Escobar, I'm always at home unless I have something to go out on the road to get. That's the only time I would leave the house. Anyway, the cow came, and the cow ran me, my sisters, into the house, right? And my sister after me, she ran under the bed, and the cow followed her there. That was long. That was like when we were in nursery school. I was probably in primary school, and my sister cried. She cried. I don't know if she remembered that, but she hid under the bed, and the cow went into the house. So Christmas, it was always something special for us. And in the evenings, when everything settled down, everybody had their bath and so on, we would gather around our TV. My grandfather would put it on the Christmas channel, because if you're from Guyana, you would know that back in the day we only had channel 9, channel 13, channel 6, channel 7, channel 28, and of course the government channel, which is channel 11. So Christmas movies would show on channel 13, and that is where you would get all the Christmas commercials, and then you would get all the Christmas songs, Dolly Parton. That's how I'll be home for Christmas. we knew all the Christmas songs, we knew all the Christmas commercials because Channel 13 was the Christmas channel. We would see. I could recite the advertisement from Avinash, but I wouldn't do that because it's kind of funny to even know those things. And then there was a commercial for toilet paper, two ply. I know the commercial. That is where I learned to read. My grandmother would make me read commercials, so I know to read, and that's why I remember them. So we would gather around at nighttime around the television. Grandfather was always in charge of the remote, put it on a Christmas movie. Well, I forgot to tell you that, guys, that we would always anticipate watching at Home Alone on Christmas Eve while all the adults were cleaning, the children were sanding the chairs, and we were watching at Home Alone 1, 2, and then eventually when 3 and 4 came out, we would do that. But Christmas night, sat around the TV. Sometimes my aunt would buy us the quarter pint ice creams. We would have that, and then we would get our cake and our drink, whatever, watch our Christmas movie, play with our toys some more, and then we would go to bed. So that was tradition for us in Essequibo. I had a really lovely childhood as a young lass growing up in Essequibo, and those are my fondest memories. And whenever I sit down at Christmas time, I think about my grandmother, and I miss her a lot because she was the heart and soul of Christmas time. The year before she died, she really went all out. I was lucky, privileged to spend the last Christmas with her, and she even told my aunt that she's gonna teach her to make the sponge cake and black cake, because she said, I'm not gonna be here next year. And when my grandmother died, Christmas the next year, everybody was a mess because she was the one who kept the Christmas spirit alive at that home. I went back the next year for Christmas, and I didn't enjoy it. I cried. The house felt empty. Nothing was the same. I don't even think my aunt, something happened to the cake. I think she burned the black cake, but I could understand with her because that was her first time, actually preparing the home without my grandmother. Anyway, guys, baby Jem is up and I have to go. So that's the end of today's vlog. I hope you guys enjoyed it. My recollection of my childhood growing up in the village of Good Hope on the Essequibo coast. Alright, I'll see you in the next one.